Hello, this is Jacob here today with another episode of Small Business Chat. Matt joins me on a special episode we like to call Hawk Tuah. Matt, how are you doing today?
Tuah, yeah, I'm doing, man. I'm just doing great, and I guess, I got married and you were on your honeymoon, so Hawk Tuah to you. Happy Hawk Tuah Day.
Thank you. Hawk Tuah Day. Speaking of honeymoon, when I was on the wheel, I went to a piano bar, and on the wall they said, "If she don't Hawk Tuah, I don't talk to her." So
Ooh,
I think
wow.
that I never heard that one yet before. So Matt, maybe we should go trademark that for you, and when else steals it, it's pretty good.
Yeah, and so just yeah, let's trademark that, just like everyone else has been trying to do, right? And so
Yeah,
it
I
gives us
looked
the,
it up. It's showing about 3,000 results, but there's only like 15 or 20 Hawk Tuahs out there so far.
but still 15 or 20 are they, and they're probably from by different people, right? Are they? They're not like the young woman who actually like made the phrase famous now, right?
No, they're all from all different types of the world.
Yeah, and
Um,
here we go. And so just so everyone knows, Jake and I, have worked for the trademark company for a long time and such. And one of the things when we go through training, we always have a day where we're just like Title VII be damned, because we have to talk about things because in trademark law, you're going to occasionally get, trademarks, that deal with. I mean, some of the better things that we've had is, trademarks for products that make your semen taste better. Just in case that's a relevant thing for you.
I heard
Or,
that
other
pineapple
trade
does the job.
yeah, there's always something, right? And such, but we have to talk about them. And I'm not going to get into some of the racial trademarks and stuff like that we, have all the time, but we'll probably touch base on all this. But just everyone knows it's going to be a little bit more raw, especially as we talk about Miss Hawk Tuah. Does she have a name? Do we know her name?
I think it's man, it's
No, it's probably Miss
Becca.
Hawk Tuah. I said Mrs. Probably Miss Hawk Tuah.
Yeah, nobody's gonna really remember her first and last name. They just Hawk Tuah. Imagine being like known for that for the rest of your life. You're just gonna be known as Hawk Tuah girl.
Proud parents, right?
All right. Matt, would you, Matt? I've actually had kind of side conversations with Destiny and others, like with just not for exactly Hawk Tuah, but for just like, well, I'm like, this happens like once every here or there, where you just there's like this huge meme that everyone knows and everyone is all crazy about. This is one of them. What would you do if you came out of just maybe doing something online and you became popular because you said something weird or you said something that was funny or you did something that everyone's memeing now? Would you take to it or would you be ashamed of it?
Oh, I'd love it. And then someday I hope to actually say something that is actually, I don't know, amusing enough that people actually repeat.
Maybe one of your dad jokes one of these days will go
Yeah, one
viral.
of my dad jokes, exactly. I thought the radiologist one was pretty good this morning. But
I
anyways,
liked it.
yeah. Anyway, just very quickly, everyone. I was, used to see a radiologist, but it didn't work out. She could see right through me. Anyways, sorry. I got into the
Better one.
pause. But yeah, so I mean, so we're going to talk about some of those issues today, right? Because I thought it was a really maybe we're about 2 weeks late to the the kicker here or the to the game, but it's somebody had a honeymoon, somebody was getting married, we don't want to like how it goes, but there are so many really cool like trademark implications and that people can learn from the Hawk Tuah lady, and we're going to see them play out. I'll say in real time, but the patent and trademark offices, pendency is now like, a year. So it's in real time. If you're watching like a land tortoise, walk across an island, but still, you're going to see it in real time. But, so I mean, so everything from like, the old statute 2A, we can talk about trademark, you can't trademark something that's immoral or scandalous to like, when do you acquire trademark rights? To in even like in a Trump Supreme Court opinion that recently came down, not the big one, but the trademark Trump Supreme Court opinion that just came down on name, image, and likeness. So I mean, we got a lot of stuff to unpack, all surrounding this one woman who just goes, "You got to Hawk Tuah with that thing," or whatever. You're just like,
Sit on that thing, yeah.
"Yeah, spit on that." What did she actually say? I can't even. I remember seeing it once.
All you got to Hawk to spit on that thing is what she said.
What was she talking about, by the way, for our listening audience? That and
I was going to ask you this question. Yeah, you beat me to it. It
You're
refers
no
to
pun
a
intended.
act to where you use your fluids of the mouth to inject onto a sexual organ for your significant other. It's probably
When
the
you're
best way
performing
I could have put
fellatio.
that.
when she's performing fellatio and she spits on it, so it's a little bit more lubed up.
Yes, yes,
Is there,
exactly.
is that how we're doing it here?
I think so.
Yeah.
I think that's what the kids are calling it these days.
That's what the kids are calling it these days. Well, kids don't call it fellatio. You probably say fellatio to the average child. They'd be like, what is he, like a composer from the 1500s? And you're like, yeah, Enrico Fellatio.
Yeah.
He was very popular in his social circles.
What,
Anyways,
what
but
was
yeah,
what
so
was your first introduction into the Hawk Tuah memes? Like, what did you see something on
wow, I thought
film?
you were
Did
going
you hear
completely
it?
different there. I thought you were going in a different direction. I'm like, dude, we didn't talk personal. We're not talking personal. What was your first introduction into? Well, there was this one time in prison. No.
Matt,
What do
you didn't tell me
what do you
about
want? I actually, so actually, I on Facebook, and for those of you who are younger than 35, that's a social platform that us old people have. But for on Facebook, I follow Bill Burr, the comedian, and like he always does like stuff that's funny or whatever, and he had a picture of her. Like in doing something with the Hawk Tuah thing, but I had no idea what the heck it was. I'm like, it's not even funny. But you had to know the video in order for Bill Burr's stuff to have been funny on it. So then at some juncture, I started seeing this all over my Facebook because, of course, once you slow down on an image in Facebook, their algorithm picks up on that and you get like 70,000 images like that now. And that's how I got exposed to it. So eventually one came up with the whole video and I'm like, oh, her parents must be so proud.
it.
And I'm just glad she was able to take some time off from medical school to actually give that interview. But anyways,
Right?
yeah, but that was mine. What was yours?
My first was I was just scrolling on, I think it was Facebook, just like yours.
Right.
And I saw a WD-40 can and it says Hawk Tuah on it. Spit on that thing. Degreaser or whatever. That's what I saw.
Greaser,
I was
degreaser
just
is the
like,
thing.
and I didn't know what that meant when I just was, I thought it was funny because, I think everyone gets the reference even without the girl, which is Hawk Tuah, like you're just spitting on something, right?
Yeah.
I just thought it was a good old boy reference of, WD-40 works on everything. That's what I first thought. But
Yeah.
then I started seeing it everywhere, and I started hearing this thing about the Hawk Tuah girl, and I'm like, what the hell is this? And so I looked up
Yeah.
Hawk Tuah girl, and it cuts to because I saw her face, just her face, on a lot of like Facebook posts, without any like subtitles to it or what Hawk Tuah was. And then I finally looked up the video, and I'm like, okay, I can get why everyone likes it because it's funny. It is kind of really,
It is.
for me, it's her southern accent that kind of does it, that makes it the funniest part of it, is her using the country aspect to it, which is funny.
Well, and given what she's now famous for, it's actually sort of nice
It
to
is.
be able to see her face. Most people just see the top of her head. But anyways, yeah,
We went there. We went there.
yeah, I did, didn't I? I'm sorry. My apologies. But yeah, but so one of the things that we did pick up on, right? And this is why we're like doing this, which is that, okay, so she says this, she's become famous. She's a social media darling now, for this. And taking it aside, she's probably just a nice kid. Who knows? I mean, obviously she's friendly with some people, if she's got that experience, but she's obviously just a nice kid, really nice to some people. But so she says this, it becomes a meme. And then, Jacob, because we work at the trademark company, what do we see happening next?
We see a lot of people trying to copy what she has or did.
Yeah. And like filing trademark applications for it for various goods and services, right? And so this is a challenge now because the question becomes from, and this is where we're going to actually rope this back into what we do, but in a larger context for you who are listening out there, like this just goes into trademark rights protection 101. And it's a really great illustrative case as to how to like go through a couple of these sort of things. So, the first thing I think that we can chat about on this is my favorite subject in our Title VII seminar is good old Section 2A from the Trademark Act. Do you remember that one when you started here? Do you remember what that one was? Yeah.
That one.
I don't even know if I
back.
talked on that one back in the day. May I?
Yeah, go for it. You have the floor.
So Section 2A. So first of all, could you get a trademark for this even registered? Because it deals with, let's just face it, blowjobs. Okay. That's what it's sort of referencing. And so there was this old section of the Trademark Act that said we will not register a trademark that is scandalous or immoral. Now, where this usually comes up in context is it usually comes up with like, the F word, which we agreed we weren't going to say the F word today, but everyone knows what I'm talking about, right? It's not fun. It's the other FU word. But anyways, um, but it usually comes up when people try to register on a racial term, something that is racially insensitive, too graphically, sex. Now, by the way, as opposed to 2A never prohibited you to get a regular trademark for something that was used in sex or like a pornographic video or something like that. It was just if the trademark itself was too racy. For instance, we once had a trademark for auto blow. Jacob, I want you to guess one guess. One guess. What do you think auto blow did? What do you think it was? I'll tell you, I'll give you a hint. It was a product. It was not a service.
I'm gonna go the innocent side and say it was for cops to be able to easily detect alcohol within somebody's system on the side of the road.
Ooh, good guess, but wrong. It was it was for a machine that fellatioed you by yourself.
Oh,
You could sit in your room. So I'm assuming, like it couldn't have been that great because, men still come to work. But so all right, I'm cracking myself up today. I don't care if anyone else is laughing. I am having a good time.
I'm right there with you.
But so I tried to argue at some juncture that the word, so first of all, it didn't use the word blowjobs, didn't use the word blowjob, just used the word auto blow, right? And I'm just like, so the examining attorney refused it under Section 2A. And I went out to the FCC. You remember the Federal Communications Commission? And those are the people that, like, when someone drops an F-bomb on network TV or whatever, they send you like a $10,000 fine or a $100,000 fine. And we always say, what I'm talking about. You go on live TV, it's why they have, and such.
Mhm.
And I looked up their fine list. They actually have a fine list. How much does it cost you? Did you ever, by the way, see the South Park when they just had a budget and they were just going to be like, we're going to use the F word? Like I can't remember what it was. I think it's $1,000 fine for every time you use the F word bomb or something. And so they're just like, okay, we're going to use it 300 times. And they had like a little tally. It was cute because Cartman would just be like, F this, F that, whatever. Anyways, and the FCC does not fine for the use of the word blowjob.
Really?
Yeah. And I was like, and what greater, like they are the, what do you call it, harbinger, there are our moral compass here in the United States. Like, what can you say on TV? So think back to when TV started in the 1950s. They could never have said damn or shit or anything like that on TV, but now we routinely can, right? And you don't really even get fined for it. But back in the 50s, that would have been like, oh my gosh, you got to be kidding. They couldn't even have sarcasm in the 50s. They probably would have fined for that. But then coming forward, at the time this trademark was refused, the trademark wasn't even for blowjob. It was for auto blow, referencing a machine that gave you a fellatio. And the Patent and Trademark Office said, no, that's too much of association with blowjob. And I came back and I argued, I said, no. But even if it is, assuming that in the consumer mind it's blowjob, okay, can you actually still register that? The FCC doesn't even fine for this word on, like, do you remember Friday nights when Urkel was on and stuff like that when you were a kid?
Yeah, I remember. Mm-hmm.
Urkel could have literally said blowjob. Jaleel White was the actor that played Steve Urkel, and he could have literally said blowjob on network TV. I don't think he would have. I think it would have been against, Disney's family friendly hour, although that's technically a really friendly term, but I'm not going to go there either. But but he could have actually said that and they wouldn't have even gotten fined. So I turned back to the Patent and Trademark Office and I said, where are you getting that this is a, a scandalous or immoral term? The FCC, those who basically set what we can say in public, do not fine for this. Well, they basically said, well, Mr. Squires, thank you very much for the argument. You're an idiot. We're going to still refuse this. All right. Years later, that statute gets invalidated for largely the reasons that I had argued to the examining attorney, because effectively I'm like, well, who's deciding at the Patent and Trademark Office who decides if blowjob is a bad term? By the way, it wasn't blowjob, it was auto blow, it wasn't even blowjob, or, this racial term or that racial term. So as we're all aware, you've heard of the Washington Redskins, right?
Oh, well, what they used to be, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. What are they now? Do we know?
The Washington Commanders or Washington football team. I think it's one of those.
I don't think I think they actually are the Commanders, and they should go back to like Washington Football Club or just Washington or whatever, because Commanders just sucks. Everyone
It is
knows
Washington
it.
Commanders. Yep.
Yeah, that just sucks. Just rebrand it. But so initially, their former owner, Dan Snyder, was resistant to change the term Redskins until ultimately there was the Patent and Trademark Office decides, and again, the same people, these mythical people, whatever, in some room somewhere at the Patent and Trademark Office decides, okay, Redskins is, finally took them 40 years to decide this, is a racial slur. And so accordingly, we're going to cancel the Washington Redskins trademark. Well, once the Redskins trademark is canceled, that then throws into a whole bunch of questions the revenue model for the Redskins on merchandise, because, well, if your trademark has been canceled, you can't protect the trademark. Can you actually stop counterfeiting of that trademark? So, of course, that's when they actually said, okay, well, we better start moving towards a model where we have a protectable trademark, not one that is violative of Section 2A of the Trademark Act of 1946. All right, so they changed their name, the Washington Football Club, and then Commanders, etc. Well, along comes this band called the Slants, right? And their trademark again gets rejected by the Patent and Trademark Office. Now, the Slants are an Asian American band, and they effectively are poking fun at themselves and the sort of the racial connotation that Asian Americans or Asian people in general have slanted eyes, right? I think we've talked about this in another podcast, but we're going to work this back into Hawk Tuah, and I promise you I'll wrap this up. But so they go all the way to the Supreme Court on this. This is right around the time the Redskins are completely rebranding. And they go to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court goes, well, hold on a second. Who's deciding what terms are immoral and scandalous? And I'm not quite sure what the Patent and Trademark, I'm sure it's a lot more highfalutin and all that sort of stuff. But the Patent and Trademark Office, I think, eventually has to admit, like, oh, just like these three people in this room are making that decision somewhere in our upper management. And the Supreme Court goes, wait, that's an unconstitutional condition. That's just like you guys are just like sort of just deciding yourselves, the three of you, what is and what isn't the law on a daily basis. No, people can't rely on that. That's unconstitutionally vague. We're invalidating the 2A statute. And so that's when we basically saw a flood of F-bomb trademarks and all that sort of stuff, because for the first time in the history of the United States Patent and Trademark Office, they could not refuse your trademark on the grounds it was immoral, scandalous, or otherwise. Now, of course, they reacted like we thought they would, and they just said, well, we're going to suspend the examination of any of those trademarks pending the promulgation of new regulations to, in essence, give us some of the power back that the Supreme Court took away. Yeah, that's right. The Supreme Court takes something away. Last time I checked, they are the top dogs in our judiciary system, and the Patent and Trademark Office goes, we were still going to do our own thing. Hey, yeah, you Patent and Trademark Office. But the point would simply be is coming back. Sorry, I monologued here for a while because I like this. Hawk Tuah, even though it refers to fellatio, would actually pass the 2A standard at this juncture, so you can get it registered, because 2A has largely been eviscerated by the United States Supreme Court. So that's our first prong. She's got the possibility of getting this registered. Good for her, this young lady, right?
Well, my question is, will she get blocked if all of these other ones go through?
Yeah. So that's the next question, right? So the first one is she dead in the water out of the gates because it's technically referring to a blowjob or a fellatio? And the answer is today, 10 years ago, the answer is probably. Today, the answer is, okay, she gets past that. Now, to your question is then we get into the more general questions of trademark law. Well, how do you acquire trademark rights, right? Now, do you remember? What do we got? How do you acquire them?
You got to start using it.
Right? Using it or file an intent to use application with the Patent and Trademark Office, right?
Yep, exactly.
So let's figure this out between you and me. But you have to use it in connection with what? Like a specific good or service, right?
Yeah, but she wasn't
right.
using the good or service. She was just basically saying it on a live interview.
Yeah, she's just saying on a live interview. She got a problem already out the gates. Like, so if she said Hawk Tuah and immediately flashes up like, and here's the Hawk Tuah line of shirts from me, whatever her name is, then possibly you could argue that she's using it with shirts at that moment. But she didn't even know this was going to be famous. Like, who knows even when that was recorded? I don't know if it was live or was recorded 2 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago, a month ago, 10 months ago. And then they finally broadcast and she gets famous. So first of all, you have a question of when there was first use, but first use with what? I mean, can you make any argument that she was using it with a product or a service at the point she said that in the microphone? What do you think?
Well, from my perspective, no, because she was just being silly, really, and she didn't plan for this to be obviously this popular. So no, she had no idea that this is going to be a thing.
Yeah. I mean, like let's juxtapose this against one of, I think, one of the most famous phrases of all time that happens, or for probably has been going on for about 25 or 30 years at most boxing, and now I think some some other events and all that sort of stuff. A guy named Michael Buffer. Let's get ready to rumble. And you know it. I can't do it obviously like Mike can, but I mean that is his trademark phrase. But when he says it, he's protected that vis-a-vis the phrase in reference to live sporting events or live events, because he does it beyond just that. She wasn't intending to protect it in reference to any live event. And I think now, and have you seen some of the trademark applications? What are they for? Like, give us an example of some of the products and services.
Hawk Tuah cleaning solutions,
That's awesome.
cleaning agents, and preparations for cleaning.
No, that's they. I mean, that's funny, but that's not what it's. She wasn't trying to clean it off. She was just trying to lube it up. It should be Hawk Tuah. They should have Hawk Tuah lube. I would imagine they would have Hawk Tuah lube.
Clean it. Uh,
If you're trying to clean it off, I mean, for the
okay,
love of God, just tell your partner to go take a shower. Good Lord,
I got one that's more up
we're
your
gonna
alley.
clean this off.
Hawk Tuah oils and lubricants.
There you go. Yeah, like I think that's phenomenal. That's exactly what she was talking about.
But
I
this
think
one's a little bit different. Oil baths for hair care. So
huh?
you're putting in the hair.
Uh, just don't hit the hair. Just trust me, just don't hit the hair. Anyways, but it's okay. So, but so you get we're starting to get the flavor here that okay, that was
No
a bad
flavor. There's
reference. But
also Hawk
anyways,
Tuah
yeah,
tea.
that wasn't a good reference at all. But that's the flavor I just don't want to try. But and not that there's anything wrong with that.
Well, if you did, there's Hawk Tuah tea.
There's hot to a what?
There's Hawk Tuah tea. It's alcoholic tea beverages.
It's not necessarily what she was talking about, but I actually get hot. I don't know why, but I'm like, okay, it's actually sort of Hawk to a T because it's funny and someone's put it on booze. I get that completely. Like boo, that's a good crossover, you know.
Are they
But
good?
so
Okay,
generally speaking, we've got to basically, you got to have first use, so you have to begin using your trademark with reference to a specific good or service. Her problem, from what I can see, is that it was just a phrase that she uttered into someone's microphone. Evidently she's made the utterance before into other people's microphones. But anyways,
let you endos here, Matt.
yeah, but yeah, um, but it's just a phrase that she uttered, but she didn't take any steps to go out and protect it as a trademark. And as we're aware, like just a phrase that you utter out there without specific steps to either use it in connection with the product or whether it's not trademark use. It's just, oh, you may be funny. That's awesome. And you can't really copyright it because copyrights, you can't copyright short utterances or catchphrases or things of that nature. So you really got a challenge. She's got a real uphill battle, in my opinion, here. So she, upon getting some notoriety, possibly should have, went down and filed a trademark application with an intent to use application for like every class. It would have been expensive as heck because what's a class these days? Like, is it $350 a class? I don't even know anymore.
350. Yep.
350, and I think there's still 45 classes. So I mean, you're talking, but or a minimum, do it like for like clothing, the standard stuff that you would put silly stuff on, mugs, clothing, and all that sort of stuff. Do an intent to use, file it as soon as that thing hit the airwaves, because that would at least give her that priority of use state, for when she could potentially start using that down the road if she's still famous. Now, so I think so that anyone that potentially may have just filed for the words, and I want to just draw this out because we're going to talk about NIL in a second, name, image, likeness. But I think for anyone who's actually just doing it for the actual words, Hawk Tuah, and they actually filed an intent to use or whatnot, I think that they're probably in good shape because unless the Patent and Trademark Office comes back and says, well, there's a false association with this person. Like, so for instance, I can't come out and file for a trademark for Michael Jordan Nissan unless I have his consent, the famous Michael Jordan, because people are going to assume a false association with Mike Jordan and myself, right? And obviously, I've never met the great. I don't know. And by the way, he is the GOAT. There is no argument. I think we've had this argument before, but I don't know, even though I think there's no argument. But anyways, but I don't have association with the dude. So likewise, unless they come back with some twisted logic or maybe logic that I just missed that part of, training that day, that says that there would be a false association with this young woman who has now fame or notoriety because that was a famous phrase that she once uttered, which I just don't see that coming down the road. Then she may be out of luck in reference to getting this trademarked. So she may have been the first to utter it, but she wasn't the first to use it in reference to goods or services. And that's where I think she's going to have a major problem. So, to our listening viewers, let's just review what we've got here. Number one, you don't really have to worry about 2A so much, scandal or immoral such. I would still hopefully counsel you all to say, please be moral. Please don't trademark stuff that's that scandalous. And for love of God, please stay away from things that are offensive or derogatory to people. Even though the 2A statute is pretty much virtually gone at this juncture. But number two, if you want to trademark something, especially something that you may utter, you say something that's really cool on the airwaves or something, or just in general, just your trademark usage. Man, Jacob, does this not highlight, get to the patent and trademark office and get this thing on file as soon as possible? For all of our listeners, it doesn't matter if it's Hawk Tuah, something famous or not, just by virtue of the fact that that's going to solidify your rights, right? And if you don't, someone else could get it. And that's exactly what she's going to deal with, right?
And also make sure that you hire somebody professional and do it like the trademark company.
Yeah, exactly. Pretty rank, just like, woo, and we can help anyone to do this as well and to navigate.
Except all the Hawk Tuah applications.
Yeah, except all the Hawk Tuah applications. But again, we'll come back at this and just say, let's take it beyond Hawk Tuah. Like we got a general election coming up. I mean, I can't tell you how many people are probably, filing for things about Biden and Trump right now, and how many will file in the coming days up to the election and afterwards. None of them will get through. And why? Because it's false association, which sort of brings us, I think, to our last little thing about this is, well, but Matt, this person that filed for the trademark for clothing or for lubes or for anything else, they're not the Hawk Tuah girl. Well, first of all, we don't even know. I mean, sitting here, we've done 30 minutes so far talking about Hawk Tuah girl. We don't even know who she is. I don't know. And probably the world doesn't really know her name. I'm sure some people know her name. And by the way, God bless on, the 15 minutes of fame, and I hope she is able to capitalize on it because she was the one that's funny about it.
Her name is actually Haley Welch.
Haley Welch.
Haley Welch.
Haley Hawk Tuah Welch. Good for Haley. What else do we know about Haley?
She lives in Nashville, Tennessee.
She lives in Raleigh, right next door. Wow, right next to. Oh my God, she's your neighbor, Matt. Wow, awkward. Anyways, what is she, like a college student or something? It's like a baby.
Yeah, probably.
Young, I knew that.
Also, another thing I just remembered when I was watching a video about her, she actually, even before the interview that she was on where she got famous, she actually deleted all of her social media. She hates social media. She's not even on it.
You gotta love the irony of that. And
right?
Before she got famous, what you like? They already have like her life, like behind the music, behind the Hawk Tuah. They already are
a documentary
on her.
Days.
Yeah. Well, Haley, when she was just a child, learned the Hawk Tuah. Oh God, I don't know. Okay, anyway,
no.
But with the by the way, I wouldn't try to imply I was talking about when she was above the age of 18, obviously. But
sure.
Yeah, but but the last one you have, and again, we have our current former president, will tie back into this yet again. Then the last thing is, and I think Haley has hired an attorney at this juncture, and they're going to be fighting their way through this. And one of the ways the angle I could see them trying to do is a name, image, and likeness, or like I just did on my Michael Jordan thing. I'm not sure if it's going to work out for them, but again, they're probably better attorneys than I ever was. So, God bless, they'll see. But just so everyone knows, so, don't ever file a trademark. I mean, I can't tell you how many times, we at the trademark company have had people come in and, and I can't really talk about the specifics of it, but have tried, I'm talking about hypothetical here, and they want to be like, oh, look, I looked this up and, there's no trademark. Michael Jackson doesn't have a trademark for soap. So I'm going to trademark that, and then, I stuck away from wine because that would be, controversial with Michael Jackson. But anyways, but, sorry, Jesus juice. Anyways.
Dead and gone. You're making fun of him. Go ahead.
Dude, I know he's gone. Do you know that's what he would call it when he was giving it to his young guests? He would actually call it Jesus juice. That's what they said. Like
No.
how I
I
swear to
love
you, I swear on a stack of Bibles that he would have like, children over, and like these are the I'm just recounting some of the interviews that they've given, and then like when they're like 10 or 11, and wherever the heck their parents were, not being parents at that time, he's a pop superstar. I'm like, yeah, but you're still not gonna have my 11-year-old over at their house for a sleepover, dude. And then he'd give him like quote unquote Jesus juice. I think he's what he called it. Wine to facilitate other things, which are just horrific. But so sort of amusing, not amusing at all because it's disgusting. But anyways, yeah, anyways. So back to this. So NIL, Michael Jackson, could I actually claim, could I actually do something like Michael Jackson hand soaps? And let's make it actually easier because he's deceased, because there's a lot of different rules that come in with that. But could I actually do, um Joe Biden memory pills? Yes, something. But by the way, I voted for President Biden. So just in the interest of full disclosure, I'm sorry that he had that moment in the debate. Because I desperately want to vote for him again. But and by the way, I'm going to use it. I am going to get political for a brief moment here. And I shouldn't, but I'm going to.
I'll be right there with you. I have some things to say too. Go ahead.
Here's what I have to say to all the Democrats who are now criticizing Joe Biden. This guy is stronger than you have ever been, because he is in, I think, 81 or 82 now. And so there's allegations that maybe he's not as, strong as he was, he's not as able as he was, and all that sort of stuff. Then why didn't you stake up, take up, why didn't you stand in place, and why didn't you go battle former President Trump? He's more of a man than you are, or a woman, or whatever you want to say, because he's sitting there and he's holding down the fight. And to the extent that you're criticizing him, that criticism should be reflected fivefold back onto you, because you didn't have the cojones to actually step up and do it. You only have the cojones to criticize someone. And you know how I feel about people that sit back and criticize others and don't do anything. So either shut up or get out there and throw your hat in the ring. But don't criticize the guy that basically, as feeble as he supposedly is, and maybe he's lost a step or two, and maybe he had a moment, he's still better than you because he's there doing it. So keep it to yourself. What do you got?
Oh no, really.
That's pretty fiery, huh?
What I was just gonna ask is, do you think that I don't know how I don't know. I'm not very political, like so I don't know the ins and outs of everything. But do you think that he's gonna step down, or is he gonna still stick it through all the way to November?
Well, I think he'll absolutely stick it through. And I think he did have a bad moment. And I think the question that people have to simply ask themselves, I mean, CNN and everyone is trying to politically assassinate him at this juncture, which is somewhat ironic because I thought CNN was the quote unquote liberal network, and all they're doing is exposés. What we're seeing about all the networks is they each have their bent. Fox obviously is more conservative, CNN is more liberal, and such, but they'll do anything for ratings. And since there's not an active trial going on with Trump, CNN is basically just, you know, how long has he had memory loss issues for? And how long is this? How long is that? And I really think that they're doing a disservice. But that being said, imagine their ratings if they get Trump elected over the next 4 years, or reporting all the craziness that will go back with the Trump administration. So do I think he'll step down? No. Why? Who else is stepping up? All these people are just
Robert
sitting
F.
back and
Kennedy, I think, is the only other person that would step up. I think
right.
his side.
And he's a third party. And with all due respect, unfortunately, our system has become a two-party system. And so it's really going to be down to the Republican nominee versus the Democratic nominee. And there's just not a way in heck that, anyone gets enough votes other than one of those two people. And for any Democrat right now to be saying anything negative about the president, first of all, he's the head of your party. Shut up. Second of all, why didn't you step up? Shut up. And, I can just go through the stuff. And that's not to say that I'm a huge Trump supporter. I completely get why people voted for Trump and all that sort of stuff. I personally still think that he's responsible for a lot of the bad stuff that happened. But I'm also going to go on a limb and simply say is I don't think the country's going to collapse if Donald J. Trump is elected president again. And I don't think it's going to collapse if Joe Biden is elected president again, or if Kamala Harris becomes president after Joe Biden gets elected. Because I think the last 4 years, or 4 years under Trump, showed that our system actually works pretty well, because when he would sign something that wasn't actually right, the Supreme Court actually stepped in on a multitude of occasions and said, no, President Trump, that's not your power to do this. And then lastly, all this retribution arguments, all that sort of stuff. Well, I haven't done anything against President Trump. And if he goes after somebody with something, okay, but it wasn't me. And I think that we've now actually seen there were some points to be made about the president's son, because he's now a convicted felon as well, just like President Trump. And so this is almost like a couple of billionaires, Joe Biden is a very wealthy man. I don't know if he's a billionaire, arguing we're the ones that somehow are very interested in this. I got married this past week and I didn't watch CNN or Fox or anything for a week or two. And something, I came back and the world hadn't changed. And I think, you get whipped up into these frenzies by media and all that sort of stuff. And the reality is our country is stronger than either one of these men. Our democracy is stronger than either one of these men, despite what they're campaigning on. And I think we move on and such. But once again, what I think we'd be better served if we had two different options. Yes, I think if President Trump was suddenly to bow out, I think Joe Biden would bow out the next day. But I think Joe Biden is carrying the flag for the Democrats, who are just such a bunch of pansies that they, again, criticizing the old man. He's the only one that's got the balls to basically do it. So shut the F up and stand behind your president. Otherwise, you're just sabotaging the whole thing. Look at Trump. Trump has the Republican Party completely in order. Those guys are terrified of him and such. So I think Trump has the upper hand, not necessarily because of Joe's senior moment, but because of the Democrat Party is just a bunch of wussies that won't step up. And trust me, it's affecting my vote as we speak, because I'm sickened by what they're doing right now. I'm just shut up. I know. Probably doesn't affect your vote because I'm pretty sure I know who you're voting for. So anyways.
Yeah, I mean, mine's still going to be.
Sorry.
I wanted to ask, for the thumbnail, should I put Hawk Tuah girl on the left part of the thumbnail and Joe Biden on the right, or Joe Biden on the left and then Hawk Tuah on the right? What do you think?
We can talk about the thumbnail later, but I think you should probably maybe do it Joe Biden in the top right and the Hawk Tuah on the bottom left, and you can get the visual. Hawk Tuah that thing.
Speaking of, since we were talking about Michael Jackson earlier, Matt, do you want to hear?
Yeah, I'll get back on that, and then I'll wrap it.
Do you want to hear Michael Jackson joke?
Yes, I do.
When Michael Jackson was at the beach, what did the lady say to him?
What did she say?
Get out of my son.
Oh God, dude.
You never heard of that one before?
No, good Lord. That is rough. So believe it or not, I'm sorry for the 5 or 10 minute political rant, but it's just hitting the airwaves. And I'm just like, I just had to get it off my chest.
It's time for it. I think we should start including them in every single, because me and you are pretty, even though I think we have different ideas of politics,
but we respect each other.
So I'm fine with continued conversations as we get closer. I'm not really too much into politics, but man, I was pretty involved with because I was actually on my honeymoon whenever when the debate happened. I thought the whole entire thing was funny, to be honest with you, especially when they started talking about golf.
Oh God, it was what, and when I saw that, I was just sort of like, I actually thought President Trump really, for the first 30 minutes, like President Biden in essence had his moment for the first 30 minutes, and he really was a rough 30 minutes. I thought, but President Trump was actually on issue and on point for the first 30 minutes. After that, I think, obviously he takes liberties with the truth is a nice way to say it. And such. And I thought something woke President Biden up, and he actually debated pretty well for the second half. But that was the one part in the second half of the debate where you're just like, it was just weird. He was like, well, I can outdrive you in golf. Well, I'm like, guys, the American public is worried about inflation, and you guys are talking about who can golf more. Come on, let's focus, guys. Both of you need to focus.
Maybe you knew more about this than me. I couldn't even find out what Joe Biden was talking about. Something about the beaches of Normandy and how
he
Donald Trump went in there and said something about suckers and losers or something like that. What was that about? Do you know?
So it's been highly publicized that effectively Donald J. Trump, our president, is not, so as a president, one of your duties is to basically go and pay honor, to those who have given the ultimate sacrifice for this country. And on the anniversary of D-Day, President Biden was actually at Normandy giving a speech and laying a wreath, showing respect to those who gave everything to make sure that we captured Europe. And effectively, as the old joke is, we're not speaking Japanese and German now, and such. Whereas Donald J. Trump, I don't think did anything to serve, to honor our military on that day, and has been quoted as saying before, like when there were other anniversaries, like in his office, to one of his generals, who quit because he was just offended by her, or something like that. Like, all these guys that got shot were suckers and losers because, they weren't good enough not to get through battle. And of course, any military man, it's
Slap.
highly disrespectful because you just know that's not, come on. I mean, you're going to lose so many trying to in a battle like that. I mean, it was the greatest war of all time for our human history. And it's just hyper disrespectful. And he just doesn't, he's allegedly been quoted like, I don't want to be around suckers and losers that, get shot or killed or whatever. They're all, whatever. And it's not, I mean, if you go back in history, you've actually heard tapes of, things like this from President Trump, that people always just sort of roll off the back. Oh, that's locker room talk. This is the famous one. I know it's slightly different with the Billy Bush. He never even denied, hey, you're famous. You can just grab a woman by the, and such. And somehow the conservative right, this is your moral president. I mean, Ronald Reagan would slap this guy around and would slap the party back around and say, don't you dare compare him to me. Ronald Reagan loved Nancy Reagan, was a good father, and was the moral, compass for this, country for 8 years. Don't anyone that tries to compare the current Republican Party to Ronald Reagan's party, or more, in George Bush's party, H.W. Walker Bush, who was a great American and a great president. It's just wrong. I mean, so that's my criticism on Trump. I'm not saying that we should elect someone just because of their marital status or not, but to basically be the family values president, when he loves family so much, he's had multiple families with several wives and et cetera, et cetera. I've always thought that was a little bit funky. But coming back to the whole suckers and losers thing, this is one of the things that's widely reported that he has absolutely said about our U.S. military men. And it's a little bit troubling, especially if you're going to be the commander in chief, because that's a weighty position to be in. That in support of President Trump, however, he was the one president I can remember in recent memory that did not send any of our military men into harm's way, men and women, excuse me. So I mean, so there's that. So I mean, well, he maybe didn't pay as much respect as he should have, but he also didn't put anyone into Afghanistan, Iraq. Didn't deploy large term deployments anywhere around the world, and the world country was a little bit off, I thought, while we had Trump as a president. There were a lot of riots here and there and all that sort of stuff. But the world was largely not too crazy. We didn't have invasions of Ukraine or anything like that. So for what it's worth, there's a one in the column for Donald J. Trump. Anyways, let me bring back to NIL if I could for a second. Do you mind?
Yeah, go for it. Yeah.
Yeah, because as I've rambled on about politics for a minute, probably gonna get me in trouble. But NIL is just simply what we recently saw with Trump in the case we're talking about the Supreme Court, which is someone tried to register Trump too small. About 10 minutes ago, I mentioned, or 12 minutes ago, I mentioned, when we see like the general election, people come in and try to register things. There's a distinction between the trademark and the Trademark Act. And what they tried to argue is, well, I get it. And by the way, it was not Donald J. Trump or anyone associated with President Trump. And by the way, I always get offended, just on a side. It's President Biden, and it's either former President Trump or President Trump. You don't refer to him as Mr. Trump, even though if you may not, he still held the office. Show the respect. Even though I know he's going through some legal challenges. Same with, it's not Mr. Biden, it's President Biden. Please, everyone, just, that's one of my little pet peeves, having worked on Capitol Hill and such. But so, under the, name, image, likeness, you're not allowed to, I can't start that Michael Jordan Nissan dealership, okay, without, Mike Jordan signing off a consent agreement for me. So the last thing we have to talk about with the Hawk Tuah is does her attorney have the ability to argue that, well, it's a name, image, likeness issue? And I'm sure that's the cease and desist letters they'll be sending out if they haven't already sent them out yet, trying to cobble back her ownership of this, is what I would have done, by basically saying, well, listen, it's inevitable that people are going to basically associate Hawk Tuah with you, Haley. Forgive me, I forgot her last name. This young woman from Nashville. And I think it's an outside chance on that one, and certainly it's one that you may want to consider, not spending a lot of money on if you're the defendant in this. So the defendant in this case would be the person who went out and got the trademark application on file for Hawk Tuah, just the words. So let's go through this a little bit. So you try to create a t-shirt that has Hawk Tuah underneath Haley's image on the shirt. To me, it's a slam dunk for Haley. That is a name, image, likeness right down. It's like if I put Michael Jordan on a t-shirt and I put anything like Air Matt on the shirt, and Michael Jordan's on the shirt. There's absolutely no way in shape that I can get away with that, both Nike and Mike Jordan are going to be dunking on me pretty soon, right? They're going to be like, dude, just let me just tell you how much check you're going to write to me. Okay. There's how many zeros it has to be in it. Okay, fine. So that's a name, image, likeness issue. Done. Very simple. You can't do that. But then the broader thing is, well, what happens if you just use that expression? And okay, well, we saw it with Trump too small. Someone's trying to register that. Well, they took it up to the Supreme Court saying, well, I have a First Amendment right to use that. Supreme Court, by the way, haven't read the decision, but that First Amendment has just always been the crappiest argument in reference to trademark law. Well, I have a First Amendment. Yes, you have a First Amendment right to say it. But the First Amendment does not grant people, and I was amazed at how many we have, 340 million people in this country now, I think, give or take. And like how many hundreds of millions of us listen to CNN and Fox, and suddenly we think we're constitutional scholars. And someone says, well, I have a First Amendment right to use this. Well, you may have a First Amendment right to use that or say it, but you certainly don't have a statutory right to protect it as your trademark. The First Amendment is something that stands by itself. It basically just simply says Congress shall not make any law that abridges the right of a free press or something like this to basically say something or to a right to limit your free speech. It doesn't say that you don't have ramifications for that speech. And one of the ramifications that we're talking about here when we talk about trademark use is the Trademark Act of 1946 and other name, image, and likeness statutes that have come after that. So do you have a First Amendment right to yell in a crowded room, Trump so small or whatever? Absolutely. Do you have a right to profit off of it exclusively? Because that's what trademark law deals with. It deals with your ability to exclude others from using that phrase because you're the only one that can print it on a t-shirt. No, the First Amendment doesn't give you that right. That's a silly argument. Trademark Act will basically simply say is there's a false association with the former president of the United States, Donald J. Trump. You do not have a right to trademark that and profiteer off of it. You have a right to say it in a crowded room, wherever you want to say it, but we're not going to give you the exclusive right to use it as a trademark. So rolling this back to Haley, I actually think she possibly has a name, image, likeness. At least she has allegations sufficient to get to a settlement table with these people, because then she can say, listen, I'm the one that became famous for this, phrase. First of all, if it's a slam dunk, if the person, that defendant, that person who does the phrase also did anything with her image on it, I'm ringing them up. I'm just saying, no, it's mine. You give me, X amount of millions of dollars in damages, even if they've only made like $5 on it, and I'm going to scare them away. If it's just the phrase, I still am playing that same card, and I'm just going to say, okay, so it's still, there's going to be an association with her because she was the first one to ever say it. There's memes everywhere, and I will roll that dice and I'll try to push them out. How am I doing?
That
You
is
still there? You awake?
no, I think that maybe you should open up your license again, Matt, and start reaching out to Haley. What do you think?
I am happily retired. But it's good. So again, when we started talking about this, when Jacob and I started talking about this, it was just like, oh my God, I think we can throw together a thing, which is actually just a trademark rights 101. Like, how do you acquire them? By using poor Haley's example here. So at the end of the day, the statutes that, just to wrap all this up from my perspective, and I'll throw it back to you with anything else if you want to throw in. Or anything else you want. I was trying to think I should have anything else you want to Hawk Tuah in, but just, does, section 2A scandal or moral, prohibit, someone from actually filing a trademark anymore that basically could be scandalous or moral, or basically deal with sex or a sexual act or something like that? Answer should be no. Supreme Court invalidated that, as we're aware from the Washington Redskins and the slants case. Okay. So then the next big hurdle is, especially if you're someone out there in La La Land, or if you just happen to say something like that becomes a meme or a hit, like Haley did, get down to the Patent and Trademark Office and get an intent to use application on file ASAP for the products, standard products like t-shirts, mugs, whatever you'd put in. Bumper stickers is the old, from the 1970s. I don't even know if people use bumper stickers anymore and such. Because if you just say it out there in public, it's not necessarily a trademark. It's not a trademark until you start using it on goods and services, right? And so that's what you want to be able to do to wrap up those rights, or at least those, the possibility for those rights by filing the intent to use application. And then finally, you would have maybe possibly a saving grace, especially if your trademark is, somehow related to your name, image, or likeness. Again, like our former president, President Donald J. Trump, recently, and I don't even think it was him that was actually fighting this one. I think it was the Patent and Trademark Office that was fighting it, and properly so, if they were the litigant in this. the person who had filed for it was basically just trying to get it registered. They said no. They took him up on First Amendment grounds. Patent and Trademark Office would have correctly argued First Amendment doesn't apply here. We're not a First Amendment, organization here. This is, can you just profiteer off of this and exclude others? So hopefully within the context of trademark law, aside from our slightly inappropriate every once in a while, comments on this, that, and the other on the Hawk Tuah, people are able to get some. So we got some political rants in here. We've got, Joe Biden, we've got Donald J. Trump, we've got Haley now on that level. Something I think the perfect way to end this should be is we should ask Haley to come on and ask us what her views are on politics.
Haley, if you're watching this is going to go live today. So we'd love to interview you on our next podcast. So please reach out to us so that we can, just talk about how you can trademark your name. So, or what you could talk to us about anything you'd like, but certainly we want to hear more about Hawk Tuah. So,
Tuah.
Hawk Tuah. You could do a think there's like an Al Pacino meme in there. Hawk Tuah.
Oh, yeah. Happy Hawk Tuah Day. Yeah, happy Hawk Tuah Day. Happy Hawk Tuah Day. And ways to do it. All righty, sir. Listen, as always, thank you very much for doing this. I appreciate you.
No, I appreciate you, Matt. Thank you for all your wisdom about Hawk Tuahing and Joe Biden and Donald Trump and just politics in general. We should talk about politics on every episode because just what everybody wants. Thank you for again joining me today, Matt, and anyone that's listening, thank you for listening, and we'll see you on the next one. Peace out.